Hello. Welcome to Monday Night Chassidut. Today is Rabbi Peel's grandfather yard side. What's it? Rabbi Avram Zev ben Yitzchak Cohen. So we'll dedicate the class also to Ilui his neshama. We're continuing our learning as we finish learning about Dira B'Tachtonim, a dwelling place on earth. So kavanah achat choderet b'kol hapratim. So we're talking different things, and we're going to continue. Right, we were talking about the meaning of Torah and mitzvot, and the fact that mitzvot are really the inner desire of God, right? Which within is also includes the inner pleasure of God. We only know the desire, but we don't. Today, it's not the pleasure is not revealed to us from it today. That's kind of a very short summary of what we learned last week. All right, we'll continue. One meaning that imbues in all details. In the Torah of the Rabbi leader generation, the idea of a dwelling place on earth continues to get sharpened, so to speak. To get wider and deeper. We're going to bring one main point here. Since, as we said, the godly purpose of having a dwelling place on earth is the foundation and the whole purpose of all the details of the whole creation and everything in the Torah. The purpose is God wanted to have a dwelling place on earth in this lowest world. So because of this, we can truly look at it and understand every single detail in the creation of the Torah, how it connects to a dwelling place on earth. We were talking about this already last time a bit, so we're reviewing some of this. But how is it this meaning, the kavanah, the purpose. God had a desire. It's the reason and the foundation above from that even. It is the reason that surrounds all the worlds and the fact that one world goes down to another world and constricts, etc. The whole level of constriction of the worlds, etc., and that the purpose of everything in the world, zman, makom, avodah, time, place, and service is to fulfill the purpose of making a dwelling place on earth. Right? So again, everything we do, all the mitzvot in Torah, they're really the real purpose is to dwell place on earth. Яша, мы учим класс. Яша, ты можешь брать, но тихо, пожалуйста. אבל היות של כוונה זו של נתהווה הקדוש ברוך הוא שתהיה דירה בתחתונים, הרי התהוות העולם באופן כזה, הרי התהוות העולם באופן כזה שגדר העולם, של עולם שונה נפש, מורכב מהתחלקות בריבוי פרטים שהם אינם דומים זה לזה. So, because the creation of the world is in a way that the world generally is limited and separate and have many details that are dissimilar from each other, right? This potato is not the same as the mushroom, and it's not the same as the plov, and it's not the same as Yasha. All of them are created beings, they're created things, but they're very different, right? Thus, to make a dwelling place on earth needs to be multi-detailed. There are many commandments, 615, and many people doing the commandments at every time and place. And an expansion of the way of service as it is in every place in the world. וכל זמן וזמן, כל יומא ויומא, אביד אבידתי שלו, אביד אבידתי שלו. And in every, so the idea is, everyone in every single place and place in the world, at every single moment, every day and day, every moment and moment, should do his service. So you have your service, Zechariah has his service, Yudav has his service, Amichai has his service, and I have my service. And no matter where we are and at what moment, we each have our service that we need to do at that moment. And how much more so if we're talking about on the Yamim Tovim, the holidays. How much more so if we're talking about the holidays. Each holiday in a specific way fulfills part of the purpose of making a dwelling place on earth for him. From this, we learn that every mitzvah in Yom Tov reflects the general purpose of making a dwelling place on earth. Including the details, how are we going to make the dwelling place on earth? However, as we said, the actual laws and details of the are reflected by that particular mitzvah and that Yom Tov. We're going to get to examples in a second. לאידך גיסא, על ידי כל מצווה ויום טוב נפעל חידוש ועניין מיוחד בכללות העניין של עשיית העולם בדרך כלל. So, another way you could say it, through every single mitzvah and every single Yom Tov holiday, there becomes a novelty and some special idea in the general idea of building a dwelling place on earth. So when we shake the lulav on Sukkot, and when we celebrate Purim with Simcha, and when we're about to have matzah on Pesach, each of these mitzvot in some ways does a novelty, a renewal of something special that is needed to build the dwelling place on earth for God. So, על פי דברים אלו אפשר להתבונן ולראות שאחד מקומות רבים בתורתו של הרב מתייחס לנושאים שונים בתורה ובעולם, ובכל עניין מוצא את נקודתו הפנימית. And through looking at this, we can see the Rebbe often looks at very different parts of Torah and in the world, and in every place he finds the inner point. How is this idea connected to God wanting a dwelling place on earth? We're going to mention some examples. So we're reviewing the first few, but we'll continue. So when the Rebbe was speaking in the Sikha about lighting of the Hanukkah candle, in Sikha Shabbat Parashat Miketz, on Tafshin Mem Zayin. So the purpose, so the Rebbe says, the whole purpose, the whole kavana, purpose of making a dwelling place on earth is reflected on Hanukkah. How? Through the idea of the candles. So you light them from the moment that the sun sets until you can no longer make a difference between your foot and your leg. What's the idea? The idea of the Hanukkah candles are to break the klipa, the shells, and the sitracha, the other side, that are against Hashem, literally. Right? So there's so another way, Talmudai, can be translated in those who rebel against the kingdom of heaven. So it could be translated, I guess, as the bottom of the leg, but it could also be Ragla Talmudai can also be translated as those who rebel in a different way, I guess. These things are found in this physical world. It's in the lowest world that doesn't have any lower levels. When we're talking about concealing his blessed light and the double and many times double darkness. ולעשות מהדברים הגשמיים שבעולם כלי לאלוקות על ידי נר מצווה ותורה אור. And you're going to do from the physical things in this world a vessel for godliness through the candle of mitzvah and the Torah, which is light, right? So, ner mitzvah v'torah or. The whole idea is of Hanukkah is that you turn the darkness into light, right? The darkness is literally turned to light. The idea of this in the bigger is we want the light of the Ein Sof, the infinite one, to shine in the darkness. What is the darkest place? That's our lowest place, which is our world, where spiritually it's a world of darkness. And as it says, yeah, this dark place, this Sidracha of this world is the strongest. It's until it even has an advantage, so to speak, the darkness in this world, because it's a lot easier to stay in this world. Oh, maybe there is no God. Maybe it's all naturally happened. Just. In a different Sikha, the Rebbe talks about Sukkah, the mitzvah of the sitting in the temporary dwelling on Sukkot. Sukkah needs to be a temporary dwelling place. Velo dirat keva, not a permanent one. This is why if a sukkah is too high, if it's higher than 20 amma, it is possible, it's not kosher. If a sukkah is too tall, it becomes unkosher. If you have a dwelling place that is above 20 amma, it's no longer a temporary dwelling place, it's a permanent one already at that point. Even though in some way this temporary dwelling place needs to be done in a way of permanence almost, because you're supposed to sit and dwell in this place for during the time. In fact, during the 7 days of Sukkot, your temporary dwelling place, which is the sukkah, you should treat like the permanent one, and your normal apartment is the temporary place you just go in occasionally for. Which is why we try to spend as much time in the sukkah, and some Chabad doesn't do this, but many have the custom to even sleep in the sukkah. Chabad has the custom to only eat in the sukkah any meal, or even drink water, not even drink water outside of a sukkah. So there's, but even sitting in the sukkah doing nothing but reading a book, you're fulfilling the mitzvah right away. So the sukkah seems to have two opposites. From one side, the sukkah has to be a temporary dwelling place, right? Can't be too tall, can't be permanent. However, on the other side, it has to become like a permanence. What are we trying to do? We take a temporary and make it a permanent. Through this, we actually fulfill the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah. The whole world is like a sukkah. And has a connection of temporary and permanence. The whole world is a temporary thing, because from its own side, it has no reality. The world is temporary only as long as God continues to create it and renew it. It was created from nothing. It was created from nothing, not something. And even after it was created, the whole existence is only because the speech of Hashem, or that continues to give life to the world every single moment. From its own sake, it would immediately get destroyed, get removed, right? The law of entropy on a grand scale is that everything would eventually stop existing. So, Another way you can describe it is the lower legs of lower legs is the world that God desired to create. Again, we say God, the Rebbe says, God desired to have a dwelling place on earth. So just like the dwelling place of the person is below, in a way that the true essence of the person is to dwell in the part in the place he lives, right? A permanent dwelling place, that's where you feel like home. Similarly, for Hashem, for the dwelling place on earth. Below, we have the revelation of the essence. It is the truth of its existence. This is the idea of set, keva, in the highest way. So what do we just say? Okay. So when we have a revelation, so on the one hand, the world is just, we said, a temporary. But if we can make this temporary world a permanent dwelling place for God, then we have taken, just like a sukkah, it is a permanence that is the highest level of permanence. And the Rebbe actually in that Sikha, based on this idea, goes on to explain other details in the whole idea of Sukkot. And even more so, you can look that the sukkah has to be from certain things that are more like the waste, right? There are things that are wasted, like, the palm, the example of the palm leaves that people throw away from their palm trees, we go and put on top of the sukkah for schach, right? Or the different, almost lowest things, because again, the whole idea is it should be the most lowliest of things to make the dwelling place similar. It connects to the fact that God wants the dwelling place in the lowest of the low worlds. Like Moshe says, it's hard for me when I keep seeing movement. It's hard for me to focus.
When you take some English for that.
Sure, agreed. For sure.
Sorry.
That's the what we're learning. You're right. A lot of this will be by the Beit HaMikdash, but even today we have some of that. We already have some ability to do some of that. Oh, where's the guy who got to bring me? He left. Okay. In a different sikha, the Rebbe talks about circumcision. Mitzvat milai l'malam mikol mitzvot Torah. Circumcision is higher than all the other commandments of the Torah. Shekol mitzvat Torah nichratu alein shalosh britot, v'al milah nichratu shlosh britot. For every other mitzvah in the Torah, there are 3 covenants. For circumcision, there were 13 covenants. And also, it's the only mitzvah that physically is visible and changes your body in a physical way. My covenant in your flesh for an eternal covenant. So the connection with God that is above reason and knowledge, which is the idea of the circumcision, is revealed and goes through in the physical flesh. And through this, what is known, the whole purpose of creation is that God desired to have a dwelling place in the lower world on earth. Meaning not just that the revelation of godliness continues in the whole order of creation until it is revealed even in the lower world. Not just that, the dwelling place is specifically in the lowest world. On a direct level, where is the circumcision? in you know, in the lowest part of the body, and then the part, you know, when you think of that part of the body, you don't usually think holiness, right? You would not necessarily associate it with holiness in a general way.
Yeah, you do. Parts where you read about in Torah.
Sure, but the point is,
Yeah.
but that's the whole point. It's God desires a dwelling place in the lowest world, in the lowest world. So the idea, not just that it's going to be constricted. We're just talking about circumcision. God desires a revelation in circumcision.
Oh, молодец. I was going to give them a lift, they disappeared.
So come sit and learn. You already entered the shul. You should come sit and learn. Learn about circumcision. Был. Был Sasha стал Shmuelem. So we're just talking about how circumcision is the highest commandment.
They're really old guys.
They left.
They haven't gone far.
They got a lift from Moshe or someone else. I don't know.
They haven't. So,
okay.
Let's take a look.
All right. So the whole point, Adraba, Shadira lo yitbarach b'chutnim dafka. Specifically, he wants the dwelling place to be in the lowest world, in the lowest place. Shesham na'aset lo dira la'atzmuto. That's where he has a dwelling place to his essence. Shemigale b'chol tzmuto. He can be revealed in all of his essence in this lowest world.
Those are inconceivable.
Right. And this idea is also applied to general points in the Torah. Okay, so these are fundamental parts of the Torah, circumcision, Sukkot. But the Rebbe sometimes even looks at things that are side details, not, you know, the important circumcision, fine, everyone knows, but even side details. Even in the small side detail, the Rebbe will find how this side detail connects to God's desire to build a dwelling place on earth. לדוגמה, מקרה פשוט שידון מלאכה, a simple case that is in halacha, הנותן ביצים לבעל התרנגולים, להושיב את התרנגולים עליהם עד שיצאו אפרוחים ויגדל אותם בעל התרנגולים ויהיה רווח ביניהם. If someone gives eggs to the owner of chickens, so those chickens would sit on these eggs until the chicks come out, and he raises them. The owner of the chickens raises them. They should both make profit from this, right? Both the owner of the chickens and the owner of the eggs.
Makes sense.
Right? It's very, very reasonable, logical, right? One of them brings the eggs, the other one has chickens.
You have to watch over them.
Right. So
to feed the chickens. Yeah.
So both of them should, the profit should be divided, right? The profit should be divided between them, right? The profit for these new chicks that are born from these eggs.
But they agree on which ones, on what the profit is like.
The profit between, it shouldn't be that only one of them makes the profit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can go into details. I'm not going into details. So the Rebbe takes this very clear, specific halacha about chickens and eggs, right? The Rebbe goes into depth and explains the deeper meaning of this seemingly clear, simple halacha. One has chicks, one has one has eggs with chicks, fertilized eggs, one has chickens, have the chickens sit on these eggs, then they both split the profit. What does the Rebbe say? God gave his world to the Jewish people so they should serve through, will act through their service. The godliness that is in the world with strength and is concealed. Similar to the way, seemingly, how chicks, there is the power for chicks already in the egg. Concealed, right? It's a fertilized egg already. It's going to be revealed until the complete revelation, which is, and he shall grow them. right? So the owner of the chickens will feed the little chicks for a while and grow them until they're ready to be sold off or shechted or whatever the next step when the profit is divided. And the profit for this service is between them. הקדוש ברוך הוא מתענג כביכול מזה שנתבצע, שהנתעבה הקדוש ברוך הוא להיות בתחתונים. So what does it mean? The profit is between them. If we're talking now, the example is to the Jewish people. Like God gets pleasure, so to be, from the fact that was acted upon that He wanted to have a dwelling place on earth. God told us how to grow the chicks, so to speak, and we did what He wanted, so He gets pleasure. Uvnei Israel, so God gets pleasure from that. Uvnei Israel, and we get pleasure by seeing the comfort of Hashem. From the godly revelation. So here the Rebbe takes this seemingly very clear rule in halacha and explains how it is all about building a dwelling place on earth for God and how it's giving pleasure between them, meaning the Jewish people and God. This is just one example of many that can be found for this exact idea. The Rebbe would find in so many details, so many small things that seem to be not directly involved with building the temple, or the ones that are clear, right, easily, or even a circumcision, where the Rebbe would find it in so many details. The Rebbe would do this again and again and again. It was a fundamental part to the Rebbe. It was sichot in the Rebbe's explanations. He was all very often go back to this idea. We can understand that since the Rebbe did this a lot of times, it's not that he just happens to have a thought about it. No, it's his shita. It's his method of teaching or learning or of understanding Torah is to connect to this idea, the foundational idea of why did God create everything? Why did God do everything? This is the foundational idea that the Rebbe would connect everything to, basically. Perhaps, now this is Rabbi Wolf's opinion, perhaps we should say, perhaps you could say that what is explained is true about the revelation of the Torah of Chassidut in general. Perhaps it is a preparation and a taste from the revelation of the Torah of Mashiach. Going back to the original words of the Rebbe Rashab, his explanation, the Rebbe Rashab said, there's an idea of the taste or the tune, right? Tam can mean tune in Hebrew when you read the Torah, or it can be a taste, literally. It's the same word. Because the tune of the Torah is like the flavoring. So the taste of the Torah will be revealed in the future. It's not going to be a thing of the mind. It's going to be just a pleasure, a simple pleasure, right? When you hear a cantor beautifully read with the tune, you just feel there's no reason why, but you feel, oh, this is so beautiful, right? When you read like a really amazing, experience, right? This is a pleasure, a simple pleasure. It's not there's no like specific reason why it is. And what is the simplest internal pleasure? That is the pleasure that God gets from having a dwelling place on earth. And it's found that the Rebbe in his Torah finds this in every single detail, almost in everything detail, how it is reflecting this internal pleasure. And the Rebbe Rashab, this is a side note, does say that the way we reach this is you look at the exact words of Torah. So he goes into depth into Kabbalistic concepts of to truly understand the world of concealment. You have to reach the Chokhmah, the wisdom of the Ma of Chokhmah, which is the last two words of Chokhmah, which is only found in the inner parts of the Father. But okay, I'm not going to go into depth about it, trying to explain those concepts. But the general is we can find all of this in the Torah itself, is what he's saying, the wisdom of the Torah. All right, Sikum. Summary of this chapter. There is a deep connection between the essence of the soul of a man to the permanent dwelling place that is created specifically from inanimate objects, usually. Only in such a permanent dwelling place can he find true rest to the essence of his soul. Can be in the most comfortable hotel. If it's not your house, it's not the same thing. I can be renting, but it's not my house. It's not true rest for the essence of your soul. Every person, the essence of your soul, you desire to have your own land, your own house. But it could be above reason. Maybe it's cheaper to rent and it makes sense. Maybe you could tell me all the other reasons why buying a house doesn't make sense. And yet, I desire, not just every Jewish person has this internal desire from their soul itself to have a place which is theirs, which they can rest within. This comes from the supernal man, right? God had a desire, and similarly, we have this desire within us. And again, a desire, you can't really ask questions about a desire, right? Someone desires to eat this plov, and someone not so much. It's a desire. So what's the desire? Again, we said, so God desired a dwelling place in this physical world, this physical domem, inanimate world. In this dwelling place, that's where will be revealed God's essence. So normally we reveal the Torah is the level of supernal wisdom. So if the Torah is the supernal wisdom, the mitzvot are the supernal desire. The Torah is the wisdom and the mitzvot is the desire. But since through the mitzvot you fulfill the pleasure, the supernal pleasure that God gets from having a dwelling place on earth, we understand that the truth of it, the inner part of the Torah and the inner part of the mitzvot together is the supernal pleasure, literally. And this pleasure is going to be revealed, as Amichai said, when the Beit HaMikdash will be revealed, and specifically in the second era of Mashiach, when we will be able to feel God's pleasure and get to experience this. The Rebbe in his Torah shows how in every detail in the Torah you can find the connection to the general dwelling place on earth. In the way that is special to this thing. And perhaps you can even say, this is already a taste of the Torah that's going to be revealed in the world, in the future, in time of Mashiach. The revelation, a little bit of the revelation of the supernal pleasure that is within every mitzvah. All right. Do you guys want to go till 9:15 since we started at 8:15, or you guys need to?
I need to
go.
to cut.
Okay, so we'll stop here. Bezrat Hashem will continue next Monday without the rabbi, or with the rabbi joining us remotely from New York or Connecticut or wherever. We're going to learn Yedativ Havitiv, Amitati Nash Torah Chassidut, the truth of the idea of the Torah of Chassidut. So.
Yes, go.